Faleminderit shumë. Mirë se ardhët sonte. Ju dëshiroj një qëndrim të këndshëm në këtë event tonë. Now I'll switch to English. It's our pleasure having our partner, Mr. Roberto from T2I, Italy. And in this inspirational talk, we want to have a special subject, as we have promoted some days ago, using the opportunity of fulfilling the agenda of Digital Summit Pristina 2022. And of course, we couldn't let Roberto leave Pristina without having a joint inspirational and motivational discussions with our young enthusiasts of ICT and digital sector. Probably you have been able to go through Roberto's profile and T2I profile as we have promoted through our social media previously, but their experience, their engagements, their projects led by Roberto are a model that we wanted to bring to all of us and of course explore the opportunities and share experiences in the next potential cooperation from startups to scale-ups and new paths to innovation and business development, not only locally but also traditionally. In the trends and new developments of startups and innovation, of course, Kosovo is trying to develop a new shaping model of innovative businesses. Thus, it's our pleasure now to have a speech, an inspirational speech from Mr. Roberto, and see how we could multiply our know-how and our motivation towards having advanced and innovative startup models as good showcases in Pristina and of course in cross-border opportunities, then moving to international potential linkages. Now, shortly, I will ask kindly Roberto for his presentation and speech, and trying to have warmly interactive discussions among both sides and see what we could promote and develop and advance together in the sense of ICT startup innovation development. Roberto, our pleasure.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you a lot, Matty, for the invitation and for the presentation. I'm very happy to be here and to give my contribution to the VB6, and in particular with this talk that is just a small sharing of our experience, my personal experience leading the innovation agency that is named T2I, that is based in Venice, in the Venice region. In reality, we have more than one location, and one of the pillar of our activity is being a business incubator for innovative startups. Nowadays, we have around 70 startups that are spin-offs from some universities, the Verona and the Venice University in particular, but also private initiative, and in a large part are digital based, I would say, as any new company in 21st century must be digital based startups. So what I try to synthesize in a very strict way is some indication that really come from our daily experiences dealing with a lot of young startuppers and young entrepreneurs that in a different stages of development of their company have different needs, but basically all they need to scale up. So after starting and defining a sustainable business model on paper, they have to show that is sustainable also in reality, addressing the market and trying to grow fast. Because this is, I would say, the common destiny of any startups. Try to grow and grow fast, because otherwise, as a famous book in US that some years ago was a real success, they also say, if you do not succeed, fail fast. Do not, because failing is not something totally negative. Otherwise, I would say failing is the way to rewind, no? To understand from your not errors, but I would say different perception of the market, or just to retune your idea or reformulate your idea in a more market addressed way. So in this sense, I tried to concentrate in this small talk some of the crucial elements that we learned since some years of this activity, and considering the fact that, for example, I do participate in many startup contests. I'm very often member of the people judging the startup contest. So just to give you also the idea of what in reality in this kind of competitions we evaluate, and also reasoning with potential investors. So what do really investors look at in considering the possibility to put some money on that business idea, that startup? So this is basically the area and what I summarized in some slide that now we use. But as we were talking and saying with Matti, the idea here is not a class or a lesson. It's just a sharing of some ideas, and so feel free to ask questions or to interact, because it will make even much more interesting the intervention. So if we can put the slide on, thanks. Yeah, I will stand just to look to the screen. I can stay here. So this is the name of our company, please. Yeah. So I try to start from to reason about the difference from a startup and scale up. Basically, the different stands is in the growth, in the way they grow, because basically the natural growth, the organic growth is linear, no? Is basically considering the fact that if you add the resources, not only financial resources, but also people, also new assets, you have more or less in some way a proportional growing of the company. But when you talk about scaling up, that's something different. It's not more linear. And you know well, because some of the biggest unicorn that we all know had a growth that was exponential. So there was no direct proportion among the new resources and the growing on their turnover. So this is basically the different way, and it's not easy to start with this because I mean we are always our brain is linear, is not used to reason in an exponential way. Next one, please. So I try to summarize 10 points that can help you to have success, let's say. It's not the magic formula because otherwise I will be very rich, but this comes from the daily experience. So focus on what you want to become, because usually startups in many cases are so focused, especially on the technological part. They are so in love with their solution, both is a software solution or hardware solution or whatever, that do not think too much on several other fundamental aspects, starting from the management side, the commercial and marketing development, which are the market that they want to address, for example. I know that said like this sounds a little bit strange, but I can assure that many cases of also brilliant startupper told me, okay, I have such a brilliant idea that someone had to buy it because it's too big, too nice, too smart, too brilliant. But we know the market is different. I mean, you can have the smartest idea, but you cannot be able to sell it. So this is something very, very important. Then, okay, I will make available this presentation so you can have it. Because also, as I wrote there, the dimension and the dimension which which is your target is basically one of the focus in order to design an organization that is compatible and coherent with what you want to become. So next one. The second point is, I don't know, sounds very trivial or easy, but again, believe me, it's not that easy. Check out if you are really ready to grow, because to grow open up to a new family of issues, starting from your IT system, the composition of your team, the way in which you are going to follow your customer, to support your customer, and so on. So there are also, like Americans say, less sexy things you have to consider, but like the cash flow and the financial forecasting. But these are crucial for a good growing, because otherwise you risk to stop because lack of cash flow. I know it sounds a very practical aspect, but it's fundamental, especially in growing phases. So you have to evaluate this beforehand, because otherwise if you start a growing phase and this very practical aspect stops your growing, can be really disaster. So this is something very, very important. Next one, please. Look at your competitor. Also, this is something that sounds strange, but many startups with which I work with, they do not do. Why? Because they say, oh, we are much better, or their potential competitor, they do these things, but we really do not even consider them. And this is something very risky. So looking at how they solve some problems, also that kind of problem that I was saying can be a very fast way, not necessarily to copy them, but to understand how they approach the problem. Because in many cases you will discover they thought in a very different way from you and could be even a smarter way. So do not pretend that there is only a way, especially in the in a such a very I would say different, difficult to predict phase, like a fast growing phase. You need to be very cautious and to consider all the solutions that could be used. And especially on the marketing and commercial side, this is very true. Because in many cases, startup almost forgot, or they say, okay, I will sell my products, my service to the market later on. But just consider, for example, in the startup competition, one of the main remarks or first thing that we check is the team composition, because usually I'm an engineer, but in many cases the team composition is made by engineers that are maybe very smart, very prepared on the technical side, but they have no clue on the marketing and commercial side, and this can be very risky again. So look about how other competitors solve this, how they propose, how they, for example, use the social media to enter and to make their idea known. Because these are ways that are very important also when you have an investor in front of you, because the investor wants to understand how are you going to address the market. For example, an advice that in many cases I find very useful is to understand how to try, for example, even a small one, campaign on a crowdfunding platform, because crowdfunding is very appreciated also by, let's say, traditional investor, business angels. These things are maybe corporates if they make some venture, because you know, whether or you gather some funds or not, a crowdfunding campaign is basically, I say, a free marketing campaign, because you can easily understand if there is someone, even $1 or €1, that wants to put this money on your idea. And this is something that is really well appreciated by whom is judging your idea or evaluating your idea for potential investing or whatever. So,
if I could summarize these 3 points, Roberto,
yeah,
as key challenging issues for, let's say, promising startup could be innovative idea, cash flow administration, and leadership.
absolutely.
Of the team view approach to creating a good, let's say, leading and management team towards the competition. So innovation, cashless, and leadership as summarized key factors of these 3 points that you mentioned through.
Up to now, yeah. And then on the team I have also another couple of points. Yeah, this is also something, I mean, it appears a little bit philosophical, but especially, and this will be more and more after the COVID phase, to show how you protect and you have some core values that are at the basis of your business idea, is something that is really valuable. Maybe it's difficult to translate it in a specific value, numerical value, but it's something that is very well appreciated. So to make understand how, for example, your idea, your business idea, have a specific meaning also in terms of social innovation or in developing some welfare aspects, both for your people, your team, and for the society around your company, is something, you know, in a more general terms, on the ESG terms, is something that is more and more appreciated. Also in terms of environmental impact somehow, and so on. So this is something not, I think that I put some keywords, but just considering also the very difficult times we are living, and also the challenges that we have compared to the environmental challenges, but social evolution and so on. This is something that is very appreciated, and to make explicit the basic values that are at the basis of your business idea. It's very often an exercise that is not the starting point, of a startup, but it's something that I do really recommend to dedicate some time. Even if you propose a specific hardware or a specific service, you can find some of these values and put it, make it more explicit. Also, in order, or just consider that growing, you will be more and more an employer, and to make, especially for millennials and the latest generation, to make more attractive your company, you will need to make more and more explicit this kind of values, not only the classical business aspects.
Just a quick question.
Yeah.
We keep talking about ideas. I wanted to ask you, is it true that a good idea or a bad idea, your idea, no matter how good or how bad it is, it's actually how you present it that makes this idea good or bad? I mean, like this one saying that I've heard a while back, I don't know who said it, but it says a businessman, it's as good as his words, because he doesn't sell his products, but he sells his words.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is true in a sense, because for sure you can have the best idea, but if you cannot communicate, it will be very, very tough to go on. The other option, to have a very bad idea but to be a great communicator, can, work in the immediate, but then considering that you have to compare with the market, probably you will not go far. I mean, just taking, and I think I put this specific point. Just consider that a good communication, a good way to communicate your idea and your values is something you have to invest on as much as in developing the specific technical part, but not try to sell things that you do not have, because I mean it's something that the market do not forgive. Let's say. The next one. Yeah, and this is, I was already saying that one point we start with judging is the composition of the team, because having all the skills inside in many cases is not easy, especially when you start with your business idea. But going further, you need to create and to check, to have a continuous control on the team, and considering the team, they do not lose the motivation. So, and to have this, you have to share information, to share values, to share the progress and also the difficulties you are facing, because the team have to grow with you, with your idea. Otherwise, the people would have a poor motivation. And consider that the engagement of the team passes also through the rewarding and the economic part, but in many cases is not enough, and especially they need to share a project. So in many cases this is something that is very strong in the very first phase. Then in many cases I saw that especially if the team is growing, it fades away, and this is really risky. You need to lose an important part of your team, or to go ahead, but with some that have no clear idea anymore of why is working there. And this is really something that can make you lose opportunity, or relent, make too long the development phase of the growing stages. So it's something that you have to keep an eye on. And this, how you do it? I mean, have a very frequent staff meeting, talking, but also listening to people, understanding which are the issues, which are the progress, and sharing, especially crucial point, crucial objectives, and monitoring how they are going. The next one, please. Yeah, and this is a very good idea. I don't know if you, maybe many of you are too young to remember with Johan Cruyff. It's a very, very famous Dutch football player that became one of the biggest motivator of the team, being the captain of the team. And I use it just as an example, because along with the values is a very, very good exercise for everyone to put on paper. Try to put on paper a manifest of values and behaviors, rules that you, if you are the founder, maybe not as the guy who make the rules, sharing and exchanging ideas with the team, that you want to have to make the company a very nice and friendly and effective environment. And I took this from Johan Cruyff, because there's a biography of this football player that is very interesting book to read. I advise you, like the one from the tennis player Agassi, and both goes in this direction. But in particular, in this case, because it's a team, it's a sport team, it's not an individual sport like tennis, you can see that many of the rules that are there are perfectly fitting a startup. No?
So it means this is the costing breakdown of a startup, Roberto.
Yeah. And you can find many elements that are very linked not only on technical skills, also on soft skills, communication skills, you were saying, and this is a mix that is very important, especially considering also values like social inclusion, integration. So One of the points is also considering the fact that the company, and this is more and more important, especially for ESG values, starting considering that you are a company living in a society, in an economic, a local system, ecosystem. Today we talk about ecosystem, and so you have also a social value, a social role. Please, a second. Yeah, this is something also very, very important. There's a famous book that from a Berkeley professor that is has been written almost 20 years ago, but it's still very valid. We talked about this morning. That formalized the open innovation model, and it's a very pleasurable book because one of the main statement says that don't even think that the best guy on earth on this topic is working with you, or you are this guy. And this is sounds a little bit like a joke, but it's true. I mean, you have to be very honest also in considering what are the key competencies, the core competencies that you can, your team is particularly good at, and which are the aspects in which you could use external competencies, also because you cannot hire, especially in a starting phase, millions of people. So this is something very important because it's not just outsourcing some activity, because this also on the organizational side for you means managing also external competencies, external skills with the proper way. That is not just buying something, because it's not, I don't know, buying the paper for the printer. It's buying competencies, so means regulating the way in which you work with the inner team and the external team. So this is something that you have to be prepared at. But this start, again, I want to stress this point, from a very honest exercise you have to do. Then maybe you can, internalize when you grow. You can say, okay, this area I want to run it directly and hire some experienced people on this, whatever. But you have to have very clear that managing and working, especially in the very first stage, external expertises require also a certain approach from your side. This is the second. Yeah, and also this appears very trivial, but is not at all, because the quality for your customer and the customer centricity must stay there and not change. I would say, if possible, improve with your growing, because it's not negotiable. It's something that is not even thinkable, that as far as you grow, your service degrades in somehow, because that quality probably is the key factor that brought you to grow, and you cannot lose that factor. So in this sense, and this is very linked to the initial slide I show, you have to really understand how to grow, to evaluate if you're ready to grow, and how growing you have to invest in maybe, I don't know, extending your team in the technical support, in the technical development, because this will be very very important. And I could give you many examples of startups that start with the right foot, as we say in Italian, but then growing, they lost themselves because they had plenty of customers. They didn't evaluate how they could manage 10 times customers, and this degradation can make really a disaster in the development phase. So this again require to be consistent, and this comes from a clear analysis. Then for sure any plan on paper will be changed in reality because there are many external factors. But what you can measure, you have to do it, because otherwise, and you can plan, you have to do it beforehand, because otherwise the risk will be really harmful.
It means, Roberto,
yes,
that this factor is crucially linked to the previous one on managing external and internal resources and capacities, as a special skill of leadership in order to then be capable of quality control, consistency and quality in terms of growing and developing further.
Absolutely, yeah, because these two aspects are really linked. Yeah, sure. Next one. Yeah, understanding and identify potential obstacles to your growth is again a planning phase, and you can test this also. For example, the crowdsourcing campaign, crowdfunding campaign can be a very interesting way also to understand this, because this obstacle, I wrote there just some example: poor leadership, fund shortage, insufficient cash flow, wrong localization, and so on, are some aspects that maybe when you are so small are seen like not the best solution, but something manageable. When you grow, in many cases, these, for example, the wrong localization, I have in mind a very smart team that start with a very interesting business idea. They started with some local customer. They were in a very bad localization in order to interact with their customer, but they were in the 50-kilometer area, so in some way they managed. When they started to have a customer not only in the Venice area, but in Milan, in Rome, and this became an unbelievable obstacle. And this is a very, very easy, if you want, trivial example. But so understanding also and trying to understand which could be the obstacle in growing phase is again, it's an element to plan and to understand how you could skip in your scaling up. And this is the easiest part. Try to predict the future. Okay, you do not have to buy any glass sphere, but this is something that is probably the biggest challenge, because each one of us know how, especially in this turbulent time, how difficult it is to make a forecast, even in 1 week or 1 month. But you have to create some scenario and some ideas about the future and the future and the possible options, because again, for sure the reality will be even different among the 3 scenarios that you imagine. But this exercise, believe me, is a perfect exercise in evaluating many of the elements that I already saw, and especially also creating very simple. I know guys that bought a kind of dashboard of KPI in a performance indicator, very complicated, but because they want to control any aspect. But those dashboards basically, as average, do not work because maybe it's too complicated to feed them. Many indicators are too complicated to be calculated and so on. So very few indicators, very easy, that just give you green light, yellow or red light indication on that aspect. And this is a way, in a recurrent way, understanding how to refresh those indicators, to keep an eye on the progress and how your idea or one of your scenario for the future is happening, or is very far, or became impossible. Yeah. So, and this is the last one. I try to give you some very, very practical aspects to measure, to understand how ready you are to scale up. In a way, it's something to resume what I told up to now. Try to understand how really you are ready to raise funds. So if you would have, I don't know, the typical venture capitalist from California in front of you, what would you tell him in elevator pitch, no? Just in few minutes to convince him to give you money, to invest in your idea. And these few we really, as a business incubator, we have a part of our training path that is named Pitch Academy, and this not because we put people in an elevator, but because this way to communicate is a way that obliges you somehow to make a very synthetical approach to things. You have to convince in few minutes someone that you don't know, and you don't know, and he doesn't know you, to believe in what you are saying, and especially to put some money. Believe me, this is something that in many cases makes evident that are ready, you are not ready, maybe the idea you had on the markets is still very, very confused, and so on. To have a scalable process, we talk about the dimension, we talk about the people in the team, and so to have scalable process, to have a kind of modular approach is something very important to make the growth sustainable and not degrading quality and so on. To attract best talent is a lot about the clarity and the declaring of your values, or I would say is basically based to the question, why am I doing this? In which not only to make money, to make money, but money is a consequence. It's not the direct, because ideas that start with money in mind usually do not work. And we already talked about culture and values, and that you want to share, and to keep very clear indicators that will help you to monitor your progress, but also to communicate progress and to share with your team and your possible investor and so on. So this is something I think very simple on paper, But if you apply to your case, in many cases, require a profound analysis of your, unless you have maybe already a small company that is arrived on the market. Yeah.
If I could jump in,
Yeah, sure.
Roberto, before leaving the floor to others,
Yeah.
if I can ask you for going back to previous slide, please. Te slide para prak, bropa. Predictability. A question for a startup founder.
Yeah.
Predictability means honeymoon or heart attack?
Yeah. Well, I would say both to some extent, and I would say that anyway is an exercise to raise the probability that the honeymoon lasts more and doesn't become a nightmare. Yeah, I mean, I know that is something very, to some extent, maybe it seems something, a dreamy part, but in reality, this kind of exercise, think to possible scenarios, possibility, and which are the possible futures, believe me, it's a very good exercise to understand how will be tomorrow, not only in 1 year or 3 year time. And especially that to me is one of the key factors also to show, because if I'm an investor and I see this point, I think this is a mark, a very high mark, is about the capability, I would say, to understand the problem, but above all, to have a fast reaction to the problem. Because there is a famous investor, during a pitch, he was very sharp with the startupper, and in reality the startupper had no really clarity or couldn't communicate in a very clear way his idea of the market and who really his customer would have been. And he said a certain point, said, and we hope to develop, and this investor stopped him and said, in this field there's no hope. Do or not to do. So tell me how you do and how you address to this kind of customer your business. Otherwise, I understand that you are not addressing that market. There's no hope. Huh? Sounds very cynical, I mean, no? But it's something that gives you the flavor of how they are used to understand. Consider that some investor also in Europe really sees thousands of business ideas in 1 year time. And the ratio is 1 to 100 more or less in which they invest. So, and to get rid of 99 ideas in which you could have another unicorn, you have to be very, very, very also practical in your judgment.
I have a dream, and I dream becoming a future or coming millionaire. Yeah. And tonight I go and got drunk. However, tomorrow I should be on my foot and go all through these steps and then try to think, am I the right one to start this adventure?
Yeah.
Who is surrounding me? Who is going to pay for my services and products? And at the end of the month, who will pay my invoices and bills and expenses? So Roberto, thanks a lot.
Yeah, you're welcome. Oh, so if you go to the next one, these are my contacts, and feel free to contact me or on LinkedIn or wherever, whenever you want, because Matty and I have all my contacts in order to for any aspect. This is something that I would like to do for the time being, with pleasure, and maybe also with some common projects or contribution, and thanks for your attention. Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot.
Roberto, thanks again for your presentation. Again, my name is Bento Regipe, and I work at Venture Up. Venture Up is official incubation and innovation center of the Public University of Pristina. And in addition to supporting startups with different incubation programs, we are also a technology transfer office, so we are a TPO, trying to support researchers at the Pristina University to commercialize their research with the private sector, etc. I would like to hear more about your model, since more or less you do the same also in Italy. How this model of cooperation between the research institutions, private sector, and the government, and also the corporates, is functioning in your situation. And maybe if you could share the best advice, maybe for model over here. Otherwise, maybe just for your information, in terms of capacity building and support, we provide quite sufficient programs in terms of investment readiness, how to scale, how to pitch, and everything. But what is lacking in Kosovo ecosystem is access to finance. So we do provide some seed financing for startups. Nevertheless, the coming seeds of finance, it's what is lacking here. So what is lacking in Kosovo is accelerators and access to VC funds, business angels, to smart money. So this is the part that is really lacking in Kosovo, which also increases the risk of failure for startups quite a lot. I would like to hear more about your model of cooperation at the ecosystem over there, because we are having our own specific key, so I would like to hear about your experience over there. Again, thank you very much.
Thank you for the question. Technological transfer is something in which we, as innovation agency, we work a lot, and especially with technological transfer offices from the Venice and Padua University and other university in Italy. And what is, I would say, more challenging, as in your country, also in Italy, we have almost the totality of companies are small and medium enterprises. And to some extent, they are not used to, they are used to develop innovation within their walls, with their people, and just evolving what they make and so on. So this leap is something that must be, and this is my experience, must be supported. I mean, the crucial role of facilitation service, the support of someone that can help the entrepreneur, that could be a start-upper but not only, and the researcher on the other side, in terms of language, in terms of defining, for example, a good tech transfer agreement with the company. Because in many cases, for example, there is an issue of language, for sure, but another issue is about times. Usually, the entrepreneur wants things immediately. The professor has other other kind of rhythm. So, especially if you know there is a way, a European level, global, even you are talking about something with a very high TRL, in many cases we had issues with companies because they didn't want to expect so much to get the solution from the. So you have to be very clear in defining, and just considering that we worked with the Padua University Tech Transfer Office to simplify the agreement on paper from I think 12 or 15 pages in 2 pages, just to make it clear also for the company the commitment. On the other hand, there is a third element that is crucial, that is about, and this is something on which we work on, that is crucial also for startups in general, that is about IP, the intellectual property. Because in many cases, this is, I say, that is the grammar of this world, of innovation. And in many cases, the small company, or even, this is unbelievable for a startup has basically an idea, but again and again I find startups that do not even think about intellectual property. Even their business is still an idea. Because, and what I say again and again, especially to small entrepreneurs, is that even though you are not, you have no intention to file any patent, it's very important to understand, you know, the boundaries and the way the rules, to make clear the rules with which you could use, for example, that technology that you license from the university, how you could implement or not certain solution. On the other hand, for example, a good prior art search. It is something that we are a patent library office, so we are directly linked to the European patent organization. We use some very refined software, and the prior art searches can give you back with a simple analysis tons of information about your idea. You could discover, for example, that there is someone else that already thought and implemented that solution. And it's not about fighting with that. Maybe it's more, you know, strategical to enter in contact with this guy, no? And to develop maybe an alliance to start with different schemes. So intellectual property is another crucial point in technological transfer. And then we were also talking about this this morning, the corporate venturing in terms of lack of funds. That is also a problem in Italy, because Italy is one of the European country still even growing, still with the smallest amount of yearly investment in innovative startups. And the corporate venture, I find that is one of the biggest potential for our economy, because, you know, models are much different. We are much different from US, and there is also a big potential of innovation for small and medium enterprises. The so-called matchmaking is something very, very interesting, both for startups and established companies, because you know, this is not black and white. I mean, you do not need to buy the startup. You can just start with a specific commitment, a specific research project that you commit to the startups, and you put some money as corporate on that to understand, for example, if that technology fits to your business, and you can fastly growing if you find that yes, it fits. So there are many ways. Our model is very simple. Is a model that starts from an assessment of the idea, or or in the case of the entrepreneur, the small entrepreneur, to understand together what they could need. And in many cases, especially with the world so fastly growing, it's not that easy to understand what they need or what they could test. And then we try to find a matchmaking with maybe the tech transfer office or with the startup. But the strategic point then is not just to abandon or, okay, take this number, call this guy, to stay aside and to be facilitator because of the language, because of the different expectation maybe on both sides. And the facilitation is made with on our side, not with one guy. It's a multidisciplinary team, because you have to have a specific expertise, a specific skill on IP, on project management, on financial management, and this can drive you to a successful solution. So, but beforehand, you never know how we'll finish. I mean, it's something that can be effective, especially if you start assessing. We say we do not find solution. We start just listening, no? And to understanding if the expectation can match a specific offer, a specific startup, a specific maybe
market needs,
and so on.
I'll put it differently, Roberto.
Yeah.
Now the startup consolidation period is becoming more challenging and challenging, and of course, shall we start a manufacturing idea or an ICT digital idea? So up to, let's say, some few years ago, manufacturing was fashionable one.
Yeah.
However, these days, everybody thinks that yes, ICT is more profitable, is less risk, and a promising business idea. In these, let's say, formats, Italy still remains an industrial, traditional business model compared to some other countries like our country, Kosovo, which is a fast-growing ICT digital society. And in this context, maybe now we could wait for any experiences from your side. If you have had any initiative or idea or experience on developing any business model that could have a success vision in the next coming years. So if any of you have any such idea to share with us. So ICT or manufacturing?
Don't be shy, yeah?
So how are these trends now in Europe, Roberto?
Yeah. I would add something. Sorry, because this dichotomy among manufacturing or service or ICT, to my eyes, is something that is going behind. I mean, because there's a famous guru that is saying that any product is a platform to put on some services. No? You know, this word of servitization is basically one pillar of the digital transformation. Servitization means basically to transform the property of a product.
I would say, do I want a pizza or a company which has got a very sophisticated delivery application for having a pizza?
Absolutely. But if you think how many in this moment each one of us as a consumer, how many transformations are we living in which you are asked not to buy something, but to buy a service and a recurrent service, not to buy a car anymore, just pay a rent and you have all the services on. To subscribe a recurring fee for, I don't know, accessing a streaming service, not buying a DVD like some years ago, or to rent something, and so on. So, and this transformation, even the clothes, no? There are some, I know personally a very important startups that started in not selling, but renting haute couture and very expensive clothes, especially, and accessories for women, that now moved from Venice to Milan, because you know Milan is the crucial city for fashion, and they are really having big success. Just consider that big brand like Gucci contact them in order to, and Gucci on the other side, one could say they do not need someone that rent their clothes. But in reality, this is a change in the lifestyle, because indeed that way you can have several clothes. You do not invest all your money, or more or less, in wonderful clothes, but is that. No? You access to a service, you do not rent something. You access a service useful for, I don't know, participating to a specific event or whatever, just to give you another idea. So, and consider there is just to give you another, On, that is a brand of sport shoes. It's a Swiss manufacturer that has a specific patent that started now, and this looks strange, in which your running or tennis shoes, because also Roger Federer is one of the founders, you cannot never buy the shoe. You just buy a recurring fee, and you can have the latest model, then they retire your used shoe and they give you another one, and they show that they will recycle completely the old one, while nowadays the old running shoe, you put it in just in the rubbish. And this is a totally different way to approach the market. And to do this, you need digital, you need platforms, you need definitely ICT services.
Smart ICT enthusiasts.
Yeah. So, I mean, also these two parts, manufacturing, and if you consider industry 4.0, basically industry 4.0 is something that is totally based on services, on software and whatever. So the two worlds are merging more and more.
We are very happy that together with us we have our friend from US, Professor Hamza Tota, who is looking for challenging idea to support with financing sources, And together with us also we have our partner from Kocaeli, Professor Mehlika, who runs and manages the techno park of University of Kocaeli. Kocaeli is one of the most industrial province in Turkey, the most famous one in Europe on economic zones and industrial business parks. So an Italian highly innovative business model of supporting organization and Turkish challenging park now spreading their products worldwide, and a US entrepreneur that tried to buy smart ideas like solar energy initiatives and then risk their money into these new project adventures. Please, if you have any new comments, suggestions, questions, proposals, our people are, our friends are ready to see if they will invest on your shares or not.
Sure. I hope so.
Okay. Thanks a lot. Now I think this is our time as scheduled
Yes.
for this inspirational talk. Roberto, thanks a lot.
Thank you again for your attention. Thank you much for the invitation.
I think we try to bring to our partners, young entrepreneurs, these new experiences of yours, and of course support linkages between these new ideas. Of course, supported by Ministry of Economy. This is a contribution to Digital Summit 2022. There will be a continuing part with our musical pieces of art, and also a cocktail offered for you in between. Afterwards, in 30 minutes, we'll start with the next inspirational talks about trust and security, so cybersecurity, and you are invited to join us in 30 minutes. Thanks a lot.
Thanks again.
Thanks a lot.
Success.